Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. And today we're going to be talking about education-based selling. And I'm going to start with the basics here. You've seen the gurus. They've told you to post valuable content. And it's easy for them to say this. It's easy for them to sit there with hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of followers, where basically they can post anything on earth and it blows up, to tell you post great content and all the leads come your way. But the reality is, as you know, that does not work. If you are an ordinary person, you are not a social media addict, that does not work. So this whole piece of the content money machine is a total myth. It really is a total myth. And I want to talk to you about the education-based selling, because we've been using this. 854 coaches, consultants have used this, business owners, where they're selling their expertise, they're selling their services, and it unlocks a different way of doing things that doesn't rely, your business isn't contingent on an algorithm. And, you know, I was reading a post the other day, and it was from a LinkedIn influencer. And you know, I'm not dissing LinkedIn influencers per se. What I am doing is saying they're in a different world. They're doing a different thing. Trying to copy that for a non-social media marketing type business, it just doesn't work. But the one influencer broke down what they were doing on a daily basis. And it was like, I spend 90 minutes commenting on other people's posts per day. I reply to all the comments I get. It worked out. They were saying, out, not just creating the post, let's just park creating the content. They were spending 2 hours per day on LinkedIn engaging with people to amp up their visibility and amp up their reach. Now, for most business owners, that is absolute madness. It's not a productive way to use your time. So the content money machine that they preach about for the average user is a myth. So what you need is actually a system that doesn't rely on an algorithm, because algorithms can change. It doesn't hinge on, posts blowing up. And it doesn't mean that you're not sat on LinkedIn for hours and hours and hours. There's no overwhelm. And of course, we don't want to be pitching complete strangers saying, hey, buy my stuff. And if you're selling your expertise, if you're selling that you are good at something, there's an inherent, an inherent credibility issue if you just start, pummeling people with pitches saying, do you need this and do you need that? And it can feel icky. It can damage your reputation, but it also doesn't speak to, I'm the expert in your world and I can help you. It doesn't speak to exclusivity. It doesn't speak to you're in the top of your game, because you're hunting round for business. So the education selling method is basically an alternative to that. It's not all banking on content. It's not banking on content, posts and stuff. But it's also not going and hammering people with pitches. And it's something you can do efficiently. You don't need to spend hours and hours and hours doing it. And most of you will actually love it. Absolutely love it. Because if you're like me, you got into your business because you wanted to make a difference. You wanted to do something different. You wanted to make the world a better place. And, if you want to make the world a better place, you have a mission, you have a passion, you have a topic you want to talk about, you want to share. And the education-based selling method basically unleashes you to do that, to prolifically help people. And out of that, people come to you as the go-to person in the world. It's something that you can do, you can enjoy, you'll feel like you're making a difference in the world. And it's really straightforward, which is what we need now when we've got so many demands on us. So I wanted to break this down, explain it a little bit more, walk through it in this podcast. So where this works well is if you're selling your knowledge or expertise or experience. So that can be anything from a marketing freelancer, a copywriter, a coach, a consultant, anywhere where you're selling, you're a graphic designer, video editor, anything where you're selling your expertise, this works brilliantly. So I tend to do this with two different formats. I tend to do it with webinars and audio events. I'll come to that. Don't get all het up about that at the moment. That's how I tend to do it. But if you really want to make this work, you've got to be selling a high ticket productized service. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're trying to sell on social media, and I've said this before, you have to productize. In other words, create packages. So it's clear people can understand what they're buying, what the difference is, and why it matters. The other reason why you need to be selling high ticket is if you want to do as little work on social media as possible and get the best return for the time you do put in, you need to be making good money on every sale. So you don't need 10 sales to make it pay. You don't need to be flogging yourself to make it work. So you want to be selling high ticket. So this is why it's important. If you want to be perceived as the expert, the go-to person, you have to have a price that aligns with that. Otherwise, you undermine yourself. So high ticket is the way to go. So 2, 3, 4K plus price points. Otherwise, you'll undermine yourself. So number one. So you really want to then think about who are the people and who are the people within who you can serve, who are the ones prepared to pay the most. So for an example, if you're a copywriter, you can be a copywriter to a small business who maybe needs a blog on their website, but how much will they pay for that? Realistically, will they pay top drawer for that? If you're a copywriter, who would pay more? Who would pay more than the small business owner? What's the context? What's the blog for? What's the copy for? So think about not just what you sell, but how you productize it and for whom you productize it, so that you're not kind of attracting people who will say, oh, I'll pay 50 quid or compare your price to ChatGPT. They're actually wanting something crafted for something that's more valuable. So I often say to people, if you want to attract the right people, look for the people who charge way more than what you do. So you don't want to be spending all the time selling, trying to convert people who don't want to pay decent money. You want to convert people where you can make a good profit, you can enjoy the work you're doing, and you're not stretching yourself too thin. So when it comes to hosting these audio events and webinars that I do, one of the most important parts of it is the title has to align to the desires and challenges and goals my audience face. The audience I just said, I want to go for the people who would value my copywriting or my blog writing or whatever and pay for it. So I have to structure my title to appeal to their specific wants, not just general how to write copy. I have to appeal specifically to them. How to write copy for your pitch deck for your startup investment or whatever, something where the stakes are high for them, so they're prepared to invest. And then it also has to connect to that productized service. So you've got an offer, as we call it, a productized service that's fit for a particular audience. And that audience are the most valuable clients, the ones who will pay top drawer for you. And then the title of that event has to link to your offer and your audience so that it appeals to their wants and desires and goals. So that's really, really important. It all has to align up. Now, the beauty of this is I can do an audio event a week, a month. I could do on a day, but that's slightly mad. And I can do them on a regular basis and invite my network through messaging, through the invite feature on the event. And the title will encourage the right people to sign up and repel the wrong people. So people go, in fact, I did this with a guy maybe 2 months ago. And I did an audio event with him because he was a little bit nervous about it. And I said, come on, let's do it. And we did it on impromptu. There was no script, no nothing. And I just said, right, just follow my lead and we'll do it in my format, education-based selling way. And he'd basically been struggling to actually get any clients whatsoever. By the end of the audio event, he had despite us doing it impromptu, we didn't invite anybody. We just literally went live and seen who showed up. So the title did all the work. People showed up, not many, about 20 or so people. So if you were doing an audio event pre-planned, you might go, oh, 20, is it even, you might dishearten yourself and go, is this even a point to doing this? But we did the 20. And he messaged me about a month ago to say he'd closed one client paying him $3,000 and another one is about to sign up from that audio event for $3,000. So he'd not sold anything. He went from that to $6,000. And then I did something with somebody else who was looking at changing their business or getting rid of their business because it was a struggle to sell it. And, they thought about going back into the corporate world. 1 month, £12,000 in this scenario. Why? Because most webinars, most audio events, there's kind of two groups. There's the chatty ones where it's like, hey, everybody, let's catch up and chat about the stuff and random. It's not connected to your offer at all. And then you've got the other extreme where it's like, this webinar's got no value whatsoever. It's just a sales pitch, right? And there's actually a middle ground between those two places where you can add a load of value and seed your offer so that people will want to talk to you afterwards. So there's a middle ground, and most people don't see or don't understand how they can do that middle ground, because the fear is that if you do that middle ground, people will get all the value and go, oh, I don't need you now. But that's not true. That kind of comes from a mindset where in your mind there's a shortage of clients, but there isn't a shortage of clients. If you don't give value, you build no trust. All purchases are based on trust and based on relationship and based on value. In other words, if people are tasting the value of you now, they trust you more. So this fear of, if I give the value away, they won't work with me, they'll do it themselves, versus I give nothing and get nothing. So it's a false choice, really. If it's a false argument to say, oh, well, what if I lose clients because I give too much away? What if you gain because you give stuff away? What if you gain? And my experience has been you gain massively by doing this. So you really want to be giving value, and you seed your offer through the whole thing. So you're not pitching people saying, hey, you can sign up and there's a countdown clock and all that random complex bullshit. You just say, look, if you've got this challenge, this is how I did it. I've worked with a client and this is how I've got the result. And you just do that consistently through the webinar or audio event. So you don't have one specific point where you pitch. That's why you get pitch shock. You actually talk about it all the way through as you're giving value, seeding your offer through the whole thing. Now, you do these audio events and you go, well, how do I get the clients? Well, of course, in the events, you can do your direct call to actions. Of course, you can do that. But what I find is it's really important to actually follow up. And this is where most people get afraid and go, oh, I don't want to intrude on people. Hey, people have come to your event. You can go back to them and see how they found it. Do they want to have a conversation? They don't have to. But I think sometimes we miss and mess up follow-up because we either overthink it or are too afraid to do it. If somebody's come to your event, follow-up is going to be your best friend. As many people as when I do a webinar or audio event and I do a call to action, as many people that I get to do the call to action, if I follow up, which I do, I get double again. So don't leave money on the table by not following up. But this whole process is to go, I'm going to position myself as the expert in my connections world. I'm going to be their most important connection, not because of my status, but because they perceive it, because I'm over delivering into their world. I become the voice they want to listen to. I become the person that they trust to help them build that business, make the money, but importantly, make the difference that they really want to make, because most people are not just doing it for money. Yes, money's important. We all want to make more money. We all want to enjoy the benefits of the money. We want to have our time back, but we're actually doing it because we want to make a difference. So why should you be doing this, right? Why should you be doing this? Well, when I first started doing events online, I was doing events in person and then started doing events online because of the pandemic. The first few, I wasn't that confident, but what I found is the more I do them, the better I get. Yeah. I can't play an A game on an event or an audio or a webinar if I haven't done it before. I will always be an amateur until I'm not. So I have to do the work. But what I'm doing is building mass credibility through this process. I'm educating people that I'm their guide. I'm their answer. I'm not their savior. And I want to kind of leave you with this point before I go into my final couple of points about why this method works and why you should use it. You are not your client's savior, and you should not try to be. And for a long time, I thought this way. And what happened was I attracted people who could not pay me. When you think about trying to be a savior to your clients, you want to make a difference. You want to change the world for them, right? You want to make their lives better. You don't want to rescue them from the mire. You don't want to rescue them from their, you're the last roll of the dice. You do not want to be in that place with a prospect or a client. And it's so important because I've met so many people, solopreneurs, who've said to me, Dean, all I seem to get is people who want free stuff, or people who don't pay or won't pay or want to pay like 50 quid for something that's going to take me 10 hours. If you spend too much time where you're attracting those kind of people, it will leave you convinced that people won't pay for what you do. It will change your thought process that you cannot have those kind of clients, or that you have to do something ridiculous like gain 100,000 followers or go blow up on social media or whatever. So what happens is it creates this vicious confirmation bias. In other words, you attract clients who can't pay for you or want freebies. So you start to get jaded about clients don't want to pay for you. Maybe my service, maybe what I do isn't something people want. So then you start to lose confidence in it. So then you don't take it seriously. Then you might start changing what you do and tweaking what you do. And then the problem comes in again, is you're still talking to people from the mentality of you're going to save them. I'll explain how you do that in a minute. And you have the same process. So how do you change the mentality of saving? You have to speak to people who you assume that they're getting this to advance themselves, not to save themselves. And this is something I learned quite a while ago, but it's been a tough lesson. Pain is the thing that motivates people to take action. But desire and goals and dreams are the things that help them push towards something. So what I mean by that is when you're posting content, when you're putting your messaging together, when you're communicating, when you're creating your titles for your audio events, think about, am I appealing to somebody who wants to get somewhere but has some challenges? Or am I appealing to somebody who's stuck in their challenges and doesn't have a future other than I don't want this problem? And this is really important because generally speaking, the people who do the best in selling with pain are emergency services, breakdown trucks, emergency plumbers, lawyers. They generally sell on pain quite heavily, but it's because they have a customer in a place where they have no choice. But if you look at brands that succeed, they often sell on desire, goals, dreams. Now, because we're not kind of a brand selling fancy perfume or fancy clothes or whatever, we have to kind of balance the pain message and the dream message together so that we ensure that we attract people and we engage with people who want to go somewhere and want to leave where they are, not just somebody who wants to leave. We're not selling painkillers, most of us. We're not selling painkillers, and we don't want to be in that space. So why should you use this method? Well, let me just say it's sustainable. First off, it's the most sustainable method. It doesn't require an algorithm. It doesn't require you to play a volume game. It doesn't require you to become an influencer. It doesn't require your content to perform. It doesn't require 2 hours a day. It just requires you to share the expertise you've already got. There's a bit of prep work in terms of getting your offer right, getting your whole positioning right. That's what we help people with in the accelerator. But once you've launched this, it's repeatable. And I wouldn't advise this, but some people do this. Some people will just do this and not do any content. Yeah, I think content can be helpful to be out there in the world and help people get to know you. But some people are doing it without content, right? So they're building a business. They're building their business, they're generating interest, they're having light touch follow-up, and they're actually winning clients, and they didn't post any content. Like I said, I don't advise that because content can help everything. Build the trust, people get to know you. It's really important, but it's not the way. It's not the answer. And if LinkedIn disappeared tomorrow, or all social media disappeared tomorrow, the education-based selling method could work on any platform. It can work on email. You could do it on TikTok. You can do it anywhere you want. You can do it in person. The method works because it's leveraging you as an expert, delivering value in a very specific way for a very targeted audience who have the money to spend. And in 2024, it's not going to get easier to market and sell yourself. It's going to get noisier. It's going to get more complicated. So you can either try and play keeping up with the Joneses on social media and the tech, or you can build something that's human, that works because it's based on human nature. It's based on principles of how human beings have behaved for centuries, since the origins of our species. Whenever that was, God knows. That's why it's important. That's why you should be doing it. Particularly if selling and marketing isn't your thing. You'll do it, but you'd prefer not to. You'd rather just work with clients and do the things that you really care about. It's an easier way. It's a simpler, more straightforward way to market who you are, what you do. And that's why I love education-based selling.